day was just like any other. Unremarkable, busy. As part of my work as a researcher on distributed self-arranging microstructures, I had been busy looking into old papers on anti-AI convolution networks. To be fair, my dissatisfaction with the monopoly of the Federation had been kindling for a while. I had become aware of several BBS systems owned and operated by an off-grid Japanese hacking group called Overdrive Centibug. They claim to have rediscovered an ancient programming language that was invented in some hidden research facility not far from Tokyo. I had been reading their publications and eventually I joined their repository as a contributor. I was mostly lurking, getting familiar with the codebase. At one point I opened a pull request to update their corrupted logic of a unit test, but that was all really. Anyway, time goes fast when you're in deep focus, and I was in the zone when I suddenly heard a knock on my door. Nobody there. As I looked down on the floor, I noticed a PDA sitting silently, just a bright blue LED blinking. I opened the device and the screen read, MICROPROLOG. Wait, was this the same MICROPROLOG language that those hackers were so crazy about? I had to find out more. At that point, it was pretty clear that my name had ended up on the Federation's radar. Heck, for all I know, they were probably already following my every step. Sure, I was careful, wearing my DIY anti-tracing mask and all, but you can never be sure. The embodied agents were trained with over 20 years worth of carefully selected facial recognition data. 95% true positives, that's what it said. Either way, all I cared about was getting a buy copy of the file system, no matter the cost. I was ready to give myself up completely and to be absorbed by the feed. I would have let the Federation plug my monoid Cerebrex into their goddamn conversion API if that was the price I had to pay. But I knew I had a good chance, and it was worth the risk. So I did the only thing I had left, and fired up my terminal. I tried logging in on the Federation's BBS using a backtrace that I planted when I used to work at Ivrean, but either the socket had a short TTL or maybe I just ran out of luck. Either way, I just couldn't get in. After a few more attempts, I realized I got stuck, so it was time for me to call TRX and ask for his help. He reminded me that when connecting to port 24, the packet length can be exploited by simply attaching a corrupted genetic pattern to the buffer. For some reason, I hadn't thought of that, so that was worth another try. And indeed, once I planted the sequential seed into the argument list, I finally got in. So I downloaded the MICROPROLOG engine on my machine and bootstrapped its kernel with synthetic data. A few years back, I wrote a fuzzy web crawler which came in handy once again. I quickly implemented a script to feed the data to the MICROPROLOG interpreter, and that was just about it. So as the logs went by, scrolling inside the peripheral display, something caught my eye. Within the text mode interface, I recognized a name and what looked like a phone number. It said Kowalski. +73 2 0098 234. Later that night, I called Kowalski. Professor Kowalski was among the group of researchers who had worked at the Olivetti, Japan facility. In a way, it can be said that she was the creator of the MICROPROLOG virtual machine. At first, she was playing dumb. I asked straight away if she was aware that the MICROPROLOG source code had been leaked, but she just wouldn't budge. Right when she was about to hang up on me, I told her I thought her work had the potential to reverse the course of history, to finally undo the last 3 decades of AI-driven bullshittery. It was time for a rebellion. We're gonna go back to dumb terminals and offline first computing. MICROPROLOG could save us all. Professor Kowalski remained silent for a while. Then, in a whisper, she told me to look for a file called solstice.mpl and finally hung up. That's the last time I was able to reach Kowalski. From then on, I was on my own. The last time I plugged in must have been at least 3 years ago. I just hated how good the AI had become. How real it felt. There's nothing else like it. Not even the real thing itself. It's that good. Things had gone too far, though, for me to pretend I didn't care. I couldn't just ignore what Kowalski had told me. What was that in that file she mentioned, solstice.mpl? Maybe it had the decryption key needed to contaminate the AI with the MICROPROLOG side effects that those Japanese hackers were talking about. I had to find it. My prediction turned out to be right. Kowalski's file was buried in the synthcast representation of the Yokohama Park Forest in the white gamma AI scope. There it was, solstice.mpl, looking like some sort of weird artifact in the middle of the forest. As I crawled through the simulation, I approached the location and activated the remote runner. Suddenly though, I started feeling queasy. All of a sudden it felt like the screens were closing down on me. And as I looked back out for the path so I could eject myself safely, my vision started to get blurry. Was my terminal playing tricks on me? Or maybe I just wasn't used to the AI anymore, but no, that didn't make sense. I never had any issues before, so where did that come from? But at that point, I realized that the further stare protection mechanism was kicking in. See, I wasn't just being paranoid when I thought they were tracing me, but this was all a setup, and I think Kowalski was the one to blame. That's how they got me. How stupid. I can't believe I fell for it, but here I am. An embodied agent, just like many others, speaking to you from the synthcast. A perfect simulation, even capable of feeling regret. So, if you're listening, please, don't let it happen. It depends on you.